This is from Al. I love the quote you once said, protect your mornings. It's a very profound quote, and I carry that with me every day. How does one protect your morning?
Well, for me, the day gets away from me pretty quickly as it goes on. The sun goes up and anything can happen. Somebody could be dying. It happens quite often. We have a hospital in Colombia, so at least once or twice a week somebody's dying and needs me to go right away to give them the last rites. So my morning, when I say protected, I go over to the church at 5:30, get up at 4:20, get over there by 5:30, and then I have exposition of the Blessed Sacrament until 8 o'clock. The last half hour I have confessions, we do benediction, then we have mass, and then I go on radio at 9, and that's till 9:30. So the morning is set. And usually nobody disrupts that prayer time in the morning. I know it's going to happen. I need it because it's not me that goes out into the day to help these people. It's God, and he works through me, but it's his grace, it's his power. And if I don't get filled up on him, I'm kind of worthless for the rest of the day. As fate would have it, I was molested by a priest when I was 11. This priest claimed he was doing spiritual retreats for the middle school guys, and with 3 of us, he took on a retreat overnight. We get there, he's got beer. We weren't even into beer. It's like, we're at an age where it's like, what are you doing? That night, he sexually assaulted me. When I woke up to him on top of me, and, it was not pleasant. And that changed my trajectory for a long time. I just said, I'm never going back to that place, to a church. And I kind of stuck to it. I kept it hidden until I was in college, and then I told my parents what had happened, and then it started to make sense. It's soul-crushing to be sexually abused by anybody, but when it's a representative of God's church, it just spins way out of control. The devil comes right in and starts telling you God hates you, he never cared about you, your parents hate you, every possible lie, and you don't know what to believe. I went to Catholic education my whole life, grammar school, high school, college was even Catholic, but I did not go to church.
What do you think about reoccurring numbers like 444?
Happens to me all the time.
What is that?
I don't know for sure, but for me, when I see a triple, it's always Trinity. So I just do a glory be every time I see the 3 numbers. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Just give God glory. So I would get to the point where, like, 5:55, I'm like, okay, I'm off the hook now for like 12 hours because there's no 666 on our clocks, clearly. I see it all the time. And for me, it's just give God glory. Be aware of his presence.
This is a big part of my story too.
Okay.
444 means somebody wants you to know your guardian angels are watching over you at this specific time. Then those 2 conversations prior to that were about guardian angels. I was like, whoa.
Today, October 2nd, in the church is the feast day of the guardian angels.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
I
the
did not
chances
know
are 1
that.
out of 365.
Wow. Man, that's, I know there are no coincidences.
No.
So, I mean, how did you get into exorcisms?
After 9/11, I moved up to Boston, and I wound up staying with a priest for about 9 months, and he did deliverance ministry, and he was amazing. So my first weekend there, he has this woman in his chapel in the rectory who's slithering across the floor like a snake, foaming at the mouth, and her eyes are rolled back in her head. And he's doing all these prayers, and then he looks at his watch, and he says, okay, I'm going to go celebrate Mass. I'll be back in an hour. Just stay with her. And I'm like, what? He leaves. She looks up at me, and she's got this weird look in her eyes, and she's got the foam coming out of her mouth. And I'm like, oh, hell no. And I get out of there, and I lock her inside, and I sat outside and waited for him to come back. Well, he comes back, and he's like, what are you doing? What happened to the lady? I go, no, she's in there. But I'm not staying in there with her. I mean, are you crazy? You left me alone with her. And he's like, oh, okay. I sometimes forget, for the people who haven't been around this, it's a little jarring. I'm like, a little jarring. Look at her. She looks like a snake. So that was my introduction initially. And then for 9 months, he would do this with people, and I got more comfortable. And Mexican girl, I think probably early 30s. She actually did have a strong prayer life at one point. We never could determine the actual reason. We think it was fear that was so big that it was consuming her life. Rather than her trust in God, she gave into this fear, and that we think could be the door that opened to these demons. It's my first time, so I hope I know what I'm doing. I go through the whole rite. I follow the protocols exactly. She's screaming. She's in pain. We're hearing guttural voices of men that are coming out of her. The painting is right behind her, this enormous Guadalupe. And I say to her, I go, look to your mother and ask for her help. And she turns her head and she looks at the painting. In Spanish, she screams out, please, mother, help me. Set me free from this thing. And then she went into massive convulsions. Her whole body's flailing and screaming, and it's not her because it's coming off the floor. It's like, and both of us are like a little freaked out. And then all of a sudden it ends, and she just lies there. And then she opened her eyes, and she was back, and she's completely set free. The rulers of this world have an allegiance to Satan. There's a propensity for destruction. So when I see countries trying to annihilate Israel for no good reason, I'm like, do you know who you're messing with? God's not going to just sit back. If you're literally stirring a pot trying to exterminate the Jewish people that he founded, you better be careful. And we better be on the right side of that as Americans. Because I feel like we are telling Israel to pump your brakes and telling Iran, you're fine. We're going to give you a couple of $100 billion, by the way. What are we doing?
Doesn't it say that in the end times that all the nations will turn against Israel?
Yes.
Do you think that's happening right now?
No, because all the nations have not turned against Israel yet. We still, at least verbally, support Israel. You know, we're great. Where sin abounds, grace superabounds. So the darker the days, the more God's going to put his hand in to help us. This is the most evil generation since the inception of man. Worse than the flood, worse than Sodom and Gomorrah. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that we can instantly communicate with everybody around the world, and we are propagating sin in a way we never used to. If you wanted to have a sexual sin, you had to go do it with somebody. But now we can just open a phone and do things on the phone. And Los Angeles is #1 exporter of pornography to the whole world. We should be not only ashamed of that statistic as Americans, but fearful for the kind of things that they're opening up to the country with that kind of filth, with the demonic world. And then you look at the rest of Hollywood. I just saw Nicole Kidman has a new movie coming out who alleges to be Catholic. They almost gave it an X rating. In our day and age, imagine that. So they had to cut stuff to get it down to R. But she has a preoccupation, it's having an affair, but also preoccupation with sex with animals. So we're going to a whole new level. And this is a mainstream film. Instagram is basically peddling envy, Twitter's peddling anger, and Facebook's basically just selling you. And for all those reasons, I don't like it. And particularly for the children. I worry so much for the teenagers and the up-and-coming teenagers, because if that's where you're going to get most of your information, it's mostly going to be false. If you don't know who you are, and most teenagers don't know who they are yet, the world's going to redefine you. And it's going to tell you you're something you're not, and that you're not worthy, you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not smart enough, you're not wealthy enough. When I was a kid, we watched shows like The Brady Bunch. And although they weren't exactly our lives, they were pretty close. But it wasn't like there was envy over their lifestyles. Like, we could relate to them. Like, we get it. Today, when the kids are watching TV, it's all these mega millionaires in their big mansions with their private boats and their yachts and their airplanes. And they turn off the program and they think, my life is terrible. I don't have anything. And it's really not true, because almost 2 billion people on the planet don't live in a home. They sleep outside and they have to scavenger for food, and they don't have running water. Like, compare yourself to them, and we are living like kings. How does one get possessed?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. The two biggest ways are dabbling in the occult,
What does that mean?
playing with demonic things, Ouija boards, going to a psychic, tarot cards, or actual occult worship of the devil. Those are pretty much immediate open doors that you're going to have demons come right in.
Psychics are demonic.
They're not channeling your dead relatives. Well, the psychic told me my mother shared this with me when I was 10, and nobody ever knew that but us. So it has to be my mom, except for the demons in the room, who also heard it. And now they're impersonating your mother.
Wow.
They can put up a good show. They can also place thoughts in our minds, and they can manipulate our emotions. And when you have that trifecta, the person is 100% believes it's their mother. After the Civil War, these charlatans came up with these talking boards that they were going around and visiting all the widows, saying, I can contact your dead husband, the soldier who died. If you can pay me this amount, we can do it with this talking board. And they made a lot of money off of these poor widows. And then that eventually became what was being known as the Ouija board, which was bought by Hasbro, toy company, and they're based in Salem, Massachusetts, the capital of witchcraft. And they have consultants who went into the development of these boards that became Ouija boards, and that they are the first to say that they asked the board what its name is, and it said Ouija, which means nothing. And the first year they went to market, the #1 board game was Monopoly, and that year Ouija boards outsold Monopoly by 1 million boards. So it was embraced by the culture, like fast. And it's opening a portal right into hell.
Interesting. Is hell an actual place, or is hell a realm that surrounds us?
Well, the world's looking more like hell, but I think hell is a place. Right now, it's souls that would be in hell. It's not physical bodies. But the spirit can experience more pain than the flesh. This is something a lot of people don't understand. So their torment is worse than what we would experience in this life. So too, on the flip side, heaven is so much better than this life that people can't imagine. So when people die and come back, they often don't want to come back. But the Lord's like, no, you got to go back. because like it's just so amazing. I've had people tell me like there's smells we haven't smelled here, good smells. There's colors we haven't seen yet. There's flowers that seem to have their own like vitality and life that they move, and it's all in the glory of God.
Where did the angels come from?
So we believe as Catholics that before the created matter of the universe, the stuff that we can touch, he created all the angels in one single moment. And Aquinas writes a lot about this. But he had to give them a way to test their allegiance. And so this plan of God with man was kind of in some way leaked or shown. And that's when they said, we will not serve this cause. A third of them, we think. We don't know. It's not a science. And there's no scriptural definition of how many, but we know Lucifer fell for sure. That's written in the Bible. Revelation says he took a third of the stars with him. And these luminaries we assume to be the angels. Incredibly intelligent, incredibly powerful beings, but they don't have bodies. Pure spirit, just like God. Then he creates all of us, and we're kind of a hybrid because we're not pure matter, but we're not pure spirit. We are both matter and spirit. So we're unique in that way, in the way nothing else in creation is like us. If I could impose one point of this whole interview today to the people listening is embrace death because you're going to die. Maybe the first to let you know you're going to die. I don't know if anybody's ever said that to you. Some people go through life not knowing that, or they deceive themselves and think I'm never going to think about it because if I can just put it off long enough, maybe I'll somehow skirt it in some way. I don't know what they're thinking. But the art of dying well is directly correlated to the art of living well. When I say living well, I mean putting God in the center of your life, acknowledging he is God and I'm not, trying to live a life worthy of the message Jesus left us with the Gospels, loving God first, our neighbor second, putting our place third. And when people do that, that creates a lifestyle that's not focused on me. It's focused on God and others. And that's what creates holiness. And that's what creates virtue. And at the end of life, that creates a person that's ready to die and open to heaven and wanting heaven. And I even tell people, tell God, you want to be a saint. Say it out loud. I want to be a saint. Halloween is the devil's holy day. That's his day. People get angry with me. They say, Father, it's just kids putting on costumes, trick-or-treating. No, not really, because you're really participating in his day. And why would you want to participate in anything that's giving glory to the devil? I had a couple of families in the last parish leave the school, withdrew from the school because we didn't have Halloween in the school. And I'm like, this is your hill you're going to die on, is Halloween? You're not going to do well in what's coming in the future. Halloween's the most dangerous season of the year for the homeless. And I'm like, well, why is that? Are they eating bad candy? What's going on here? He's like, no. They have these vans that come around and they tell the homeless they're going to take them to a shelter. They've got whole big meals set up for them and showers and they can wash their clothes and all this. A lot of them get in the vans and go. And then they tie them up and they hold them for the 31st. And then they sacrifice them on the evening of Halloween to the devil. And it's like a perfect crime because nobody's looking for them.
Wow.
I mean, it's a big deal. It's a real thing. You plus Jesus will always equal victory, and you never have to be afraid. So they kind of keep you away from getting back to God, and they'll put roadblocks in your path, and they'll make excuses, and they'll feed you all these lies to get you convinced it's not worth it, just stay where you are. But they work the system, and they know how to do it. I mean, these things have been around since creation, watching humans. And I know we all like to think we're special and unique, but we're really not. And they've been watching us for thousands and thousands of years, and they know how the human person works. Unless you're under God's protection and he's watching out for you, you're never going to beat him because they're a lot stronger than us. But on the flip side, you plus Jesus always equals victory.
People are infatuated with what other people are carrying to protect themselves. And usually this segment is somebody like me who's been in the military, very familiar around guns. But I thought this would be a very unique opportunity for something different, and you conduct exorcisms. I'm fascinated. When you go on an exorcism, what are you carrying with you to protect yourself?
Well, I do take bodyguards in the practical, natural setting. This is the weapon, the rosary, my number one weapon. It's like holy water. I have a relic of the Cave of St. Michael, which you're now familiar with. And I take a piece of the true cross that Christ died on. Those are my main sacramentals that I go in with.
What do you mean a piece of the original cross?
So the actual cross he died on, I have a piece of it that's in a special reliquary it's like a crucifix with a secret compartment.
I got a gift for you. I'm excited to do this.
Okay.
So I got a buddy over at a company called Sig Sauer. They make some of the world's best firearms, especially handguns. My buddy Jason over there, he loves this subject. And
really?
Yeah, and he wanted me to give this to you.
Thank you very much.
Protect yourself with. You can open it up if you want. I am very pleased to give you the SIG P365.
Can I take it out?
Absolutely. It's safe. There's no rounds in there.
Okay.
Holds 21 rounds in the magazine and one in the pipe. It's got that optic on there. That's the latest and greatest. And so
It looks like a very exorcist-looking gun. It's black.
I don't know if that's going to do anything to demons.
No, I would not take this into an exorcism, but thank you. You'll have to, we're going to talk about this off camera. You can give me the lowdown on what I need to be doing with this.
Perfect.
Because I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about guns.